can't believe you loaned me your car without telling me it had a blind spot. I could have been killed.
Now, Biff, now, I never noticed that the car had any blind spot before when I would drive it. Hi, son.
But what are you, blind, McFly? It's there. How else do you explain that wreck out there?
Now, Biff, can I assume that your insurance is going to pay for the damage?
My insurance? It's your car. Your insurance should pay for it. I want to know who's going to pay for this. I spilled beer all over when that car smashed into me. Who's going to pay my cleaning bill? And where's my reports?
Well, I haven't finished those up yet, but, you know, I figured since they weren't due till...
Hello? Hello? Anybody home?
Oh.
Think, McFly.
Right.
Think. I gotta have time to get them retyped. Do you realize what would happen if I handed my reports in your handwriting? I'll get fired. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you?
Of course not, Biff. No, I wouldn't want that to happen.
A long, long time ago. Actually, it was only 4 years ago, that year 2021. I thought of a podcast idea. It was so much fun that first year that I figured I would do it again. The next 2 years I did the sequels. Compared to the first, there are no equals. The fourth year, as you all know, was that silly cartoon show. And when March 31st arrived, I wouldn't say I almost cried, but I thought it best to decide to say my last goodbye. But I lied about Marchy McFly, said that last year was the last year and that the show had died. But I found a way to keep the podcast alive, and I'm gonna call it Marchy McFIVE. I'm gonna call it Marchy McFIVE. Yeah, I lied about Marchy McFly, said that last year was the last year and that the show had died. But I found a way to keep that podcast alive, and I welcome you to Marchy McFive.
It's day four of year 5 of Marchy McFly, which I've called Marchy McFive. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy March 4th. Happy day 4 of Marchy McFly. Happy day 4 of Marchy McFive. I am excited to be back talking more Back to the Future. I'm really enjoying doing these shows this way. It's like there's only a little bit to cover, but you can kind of hyper focus on it, and it allows me to kind of it's not as stressful as 31 days of trying to come up with something unique every time, talking about specific things every time, bouncing all over the place. What can I think of this time? Oh, I didn't look at it this way or that way. Or let me come up with a skit. Let me come up with a song. And yes, I'm sure that my brain will allow time for that as well. But I'm only 4 days in. This is a long, long road, and we're really just in the beginning. So today, I'm just going to be talking again about 3 minutes and 35 seconds of Back to the Future. Today we're talking about minutes 10:45 to 14:20. And this segment continues exactly where the last one left off. You're going to hear me say that every time, and I feel like it's unnecessary, and yet, I don't know, I'm using it as a crutch. It's like, okay, just to remind you where we last left off, the Save the Clock Tower lady showed up. Now, this woman's name is Elsa Raven. That's the character's name is Clock Tower Lady. But Elsa Raven's the actress's name. She actually passed away at the ripe old age of 91 in a scuba diving accident. No, she was 91. I think she just died, back in 2020. She was also in the Amityville Horror, and she was in Titanic. Now, I haven't seen Titanic in, I don't know, decades. I saw it when it first came out. Now, I'm going to tell you a quick story, quick aside, because that's what else do we have to do here? Titanic, the biggest spectacle of a movie almost ever at the time. Like, it was just this giant thing you had to see on the big screen. And I am almost positive that I watched it with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, at a beach cottage with my grandparents on a 17-inch, maybe 25-inch TV. I don't know. It wasn't a terribly small TV, but it wasn't a big TV. And I hooked up my camcorder to the television so we could watch it on VHS. I think there were 2 VHS tapes. That's how we watched Titanic the first time. Or maybe that's how I watched Titanic the only time. I'm not sure if I've seen Titanic more than once. But if you are a big Titanic fan, there's a scene where there's like this old couple lying in bed and water's rushing over them or under them. I assume they're, about to be, drowned. The woman is Elsa Raven, the Save the Clock Tower Lady. Boom, brought it back. That is what we call professional podcasting. So the another thing I wanted to note is the pin she's wearing, Save the Clock Tower. Of course, if you look up Save the Clock Tower pin, you can find it. Someone on Etsy selling it. It was like $1.50. I thought I should buy that. Now, if I was still a commuter and I would still take my backpack with my laptop to work a couple days a week, I probably would have made the purchase. But I work from home. In fact, I've worked from home my entire Marchy McFly career. I've never commuted during Marchy McFly. This is crazy. So I won't buy the pin, but now I'm thinking it'd be also kind of a cool piggy bank if someone recreated the coin, the cup. It looks like a coffee cup or something with a lid cut into it. That you just cut the coin and slot into the lid, and you just have a paper wrapped up that says Save the Clock Tower. I mean, that seems easy enough to make. You just print up the piece of paper and do it yourself. But I bet you there are people who are selling that on Etsy. So Marty gives her a quarter, and she seems pretty happy about that. I talked more about that yesterday, and I kind of broke my own rules talking about something that had nothing to do with yesterday's clip because he didn't give the quarter until today. But she's really excited about it, and that's when Jennifer's dad showed up. Now, I could not find anything on who the actor was. No idea. I even found a Reddit post where people are looking, like, who is this guy? They took a screenshot. They're like, I think he played a coach in some movie once. It's like, nope, I couldn't find anything. But I do know that he's driving an AMC Eagle wagon, which is kind of a cool looking, and I mean cool. I don't mean like it's actually cool. I mean it is superbly 80s, and it's like that retro cool, like if I had just a mustache and I wore scarves and I drove that car, ironically I could feel like, oh, look at that, I'm here, but it just runs on corn oil because I had it adapted or something. I don't know, but it seems like it's cool in that kind of way. And I wanted to note that I love how cars can really date a movie. Like, yes, the way people dress and their hairstyles can easily bring you back to a specific time. But there are certain people whose hair, back in the 50s looks just like hair that people have today. There's people who dress in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, how they dress today. Now, yes, it was more popular then, or maybe it started then, but it could fit in either timeline, whereas a car, almost more than any other object, except maybe a house, like furniture in a house or something, but a car, even a furniture in a house could be, seen as, whoa, they have this Art Deco look. But car and multiple cars, because if you have one car, someone can have an old car. But when you see the cars on a street, it instantly brings you to the time when that movie is done. And that's why when you're watching something, you're like, oh, this is set then because I see these cars, and of course this is made in the 80s, set in the 80s, so it's not like they had to get retro cars to give you that sense of the time. It's just watching it 40 years later, it is like that comfort of, wow, those are the cars that were popular when I was, young, and I had something called potential back then. Those were the cars that were popular. So Jennifer's dad, for some reason, I always thought he was like, come along, like he beeped again, but he's just like, Jennifer, that's it. He doesn't really start anything. For years, I would say, come along now. I would say to my wife, come along, Tammy. And I was thinking it was Jennifer's dad. Nothing, completely made up in my head. He just calls, beeps, says Jennifer. And, the interesting thing about Jennifer is no problem with her showing, some public affection for her man, kisses him right on his two lips, and writes, I love you in the note. And I was like, right in front of the dad, you'd think Marty has this look like, oh my God, he's in ecstasy when she kisses him, and you hear, that's the power of love. And you'd think he should look and see Jennifer's dad scowling at him like, you little McFly. Because it'd be nice. It would have been a nice thing if he was like, you and your McFlies. Like, no one likes the McFlies. They all think, oh, the McFlies, they're a bunch of, just spineless nobodies. And he'd be like, and he calls him a chicken. He's like, I'm no chicken. Like, what are you talking about, Marty? He goes, oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm not worried about that right now. Talk about that in 5 years. But she kisses him right on his face, and she's completely, I love you in the note. And she writes her phone number, and I looked it up, and 4823. There's nothing, you can't call a 555 number, but if you want to, it's 555-4823. And if you just Google that, of course, the first thing you're going to see is Jennifer in Back to the Future. And wait a minute. Wait a second. Oh, no. She's going to be at her grandmother's. Oh, my God. I thought for a second, wait, they're in love? They're using the L word? They're kissing? They're talking about their future? And they're talking about going up to the lake? And, I'm assuming they're going to, have some hanky-panky, or at least heavy petting. I'm sorry, I can't even say heavy petting without laughing. And I thought, he doesn't know her phone number, but she's going to be at her grandmother's, I think it was. So it gives that phone number and kisses her, and then she goes off, and we do not see Jennifer again until the very end of the movie. She does not play any part in anything. The Parkers, nothing. You don't even hear the name Parker at all. The rest of the movie, and we got Tannins, we got Baines, we got McFlies. A Parker just throwing it in there. Hey, Parker, and he just looks real quick. That it would have added something, I think, just a quick, because, you think it's the type of town where a lot of the people who are there now went to high school there, and so they were there 30 years ago. I live in one of those towns. It would have been a nice little addition. So Jennifer goes off again, doesn't play another part until she shows up outside his garage. And I hate to say this, but I noticed something in the background that I never put together before, but the aerobic studio is Lou's Aerobic Center. And I say I've never put it together before, but maybe I talked about this 4 years ago and I forget. But Lou's Aerobic Studio, 1955, that same location, Lou's Cafe. So, Lou was a kind of an older guy back then. But again, it's the 50s. He could have been 25, and he just looked 50. But whatever happened, somewhere along the way, Lou's Cafe became Lou's Aerobic Center. They kept the name Lou, so either another Lou bought it, or it's in the family still, or they're like, let's name this after Lou, who died here of a coronary at the ripe old age of 42. And he went out living. He went out dying as he lived, with cigarettes and high-fat foods. Doesn't seem like a bad way to go. Again, I have no idea. I assume he's dead, and this is a different Lou. Otherwise, there's maybe he's like 95 now, and he's such a perv that he's like, I'm going to turn it into an aerobic studio. And you don't see these women. You see these women, but you can't tell. But behind one of the sides there's just a chair, and old Lou sits in it all day. And he's like, all right, ladies, here's another class. All right. Yes. And he looks out and he sees Goldie Wilson. He's like, well. I was wrong about that one. He sees the mayor go by, and it's just, he's still alive. That's what I'm going with. Lou is still alive, and he's inside the aerobic studio, and he's a giant perv. And he's still, slightly racist. And even though Goldie is the mayor and Progress is his middle name, because we hear that while Marty is ready to leave, he hunches down and hitches a ride on a cop car, which is risky, but Marty McFly, he is not the timid guy that his dad is. Yes, he's worried about music, but he is much more confident, and I'll talk a little bit about that later with one little moment that made me think, someone doesn't look at Marty the same way they look at George. Now, Strickland does, but I'm going to tell you something about Biff towards the end of this segment. So, Progress is his middle name, right? Oh, I don't know if it's played at this point. I'm sorry, it's not played at this point. It's played later or earlier when he and Jennifer are going by. But in the background, when Marty is going away, the movie theater says Orgy American Style. I'm not sure if Progress is Goldie Wilson's middle name. And I've gone on record for years that I think Goldie is just coasting on, his maybe some past wins, some things he did for Hill Valley, or the fact that he's been a Hill Valley resident forever. But the fact that he's worried about a clock tower. Meanwhile, there's a porno theater five seconds away from the high school. I don't know. I'm just not sure how I feel about that. And yet, Hill Valley obviously likes and respects his family because they come back. I think a few generations are still mayors, and then in the future, we have one who does the Harvard conversions, right? So apparently, the Goldie Wilson family is well regarded in the history and annals of Hill Valley. So, as I said, Marty heads home. He just grabs onto the back of that car and goes off. And I was like, Michael J. Fox, he is such a physical actor, or he was such a physical actor. He obviously he still does some acting now, but obviously with his condition and his illness, it makes it a lot harder to do things. And when he drove away, I never noticed before, but it says the clock tower is now the home of the Hill Valley Department of Social Services. Nothing done with that at all. But we jump from the cop car. Marty goes away. Next thing we see, he's behind a pickup truck. He doesn't skate pretty much at all. In fact, he just goes from truck to car to car to car, and he pulls into Lyon Estates. And every time he pulls into Lyon Estates, he lets go of the truck, and he skates right down the middle. And I thought, what if a car was coming the other way? It's kind of dusk. It's dark, but a car could forget to put their headlights on, smash right in the middle of Marty McFly. There's just McFly everywhere all over the streets. And George is inside the house arguing with Biff. They have no idea. They hear the sirens like, what now? Oh my God. Oh my God. They see the backpack. Oh my goodness. And Biff's like, what about my dry cleaning? So I assume this is a stunt guy on the skateboard, but at the very end, it's definitely Michael J. Fox who pulls right up to the house with the skateboard and the tow truck. And I thought Lyon Estates, there's graffiti all over the signs when you're going in, but I thought it still looked like a fairly nice, suburban family neighborhood. I didn't think it was anything bad. I guess it gets worse in I wouldn't say the future. I would say in a different time, but that's for another year. I'm breaking my rules constantly, but who cares? I made the rules. Who's going to enforce them? Me? Not me. So he gets to the house, and I wrote down California, Bravo, Tango, Delta, 629, Topher impoundment, any unit, please respond. I never, ever noticed that before. Marty pulls up, and he sees the tow truck. He's like, oh my God. Sees the car is wrecked, and that's coming from the radio of the tow truck. I don't know. I guess the guy's in the truck already. He's ready to leave. I tried to look it up. I did look it up. Couldn't find who the voice of that was. Somebody added that for some reason. The sound mixer. I thought, maybe it's a producer or something, like a little Easter egg there on the radio, but I couldn't find anything at all. One thing I've noticed about Back to the Future this time around, and in thinking about future days, is that we get some real excellent character introductions, like real moments of like, and here's the character. Like we have Marty, who came in and with the whole guitar. In the future, we'll have another character who shows up at a mall. Well, I've said too much. It doesn't play for every single major character, but different versions of the character, it kind of does. And for George McFly and Biff Tannen, we get one of these great moments of just like, here are two of the major players in this story, and here they are arguing pretty much what they've probably done for their entire lives. As we walk into the house, Marty walks into the house, we go with him, and we hear arguing. First we hear Thomas Wilson's Biff, then we hear Crispin Glover's George, and two complete total opposites. One, this big, large, overbearing, boisterous jerk, loudmouth, and this other guy is this small, like nebbishy. That's the word. I think that's a word, nebbishy, and just nerdy, like just kind of like hunched over guy. And they're arguing about the car. They're arguing about the car crash. Apparently, Biff borrowed the car, and he didn't know about he's like, you didn't tell me about a blind spot. I could have been killed. And there was no blind spot because George's like, I don't remember any blind spot before. And he says, I'm sure your insurance will pay for it. And he's like, Biff's like, my insurance? Your insurance should pay for it. Now, first of all, I thought whoever's driving the car is the person who pays. Like they're the kind of, the insurance goes with the driver, not the car. But I don't know. I guess that I wouldn't, because you pay insurance based on the type of car you have. So maybe it doesn't work that way. But he's like, I want to know who's going to pay for, this is such a great line. I want to know who's going to pay for my dry cleaning or pay for the cleaning of my jacket. I spilled a beer on my jacket when that car came out of nowhere. That woman almost hit me. Now he's blaming the other person, and he's worried about his jacket. And, oh, by the way, he's drinking and driving. He's drinking beer while he's driving, and he's upset that he spilled stuff on him. Such a wonderful, like, everything right there in front of you, just showing you what type of guy this is. The way he dresses, the way he's just, his big goofy hair, like everything about him. And he's a bully, and I really hate bullies. He is like, hey, by the way, changes the subject. Did you do those reports for me? And we find out later that Biff just happens to be a supervisor. And he's like, oh, I haven't finished them yet. He goes, I still need time to retype them because this is, the 80s. You can't just print them up. He goes, I can't turn in my reports in your handwriting. I'd get fired. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? I mean, this seems like it's happened before, or this is another foreshadowing that we don't realize. And he's bullying him, think McFly, hitting him on the head. And he's such a jerk. But then George does something that is hilarious. He's like, I'll run those reports right over on Saturday. And does like a little running move. And it's little things like that where I'm like, Crispin Glover should have been nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this movie. I think nowadays, a role like this in a movie like this could have garnered a nomination. People look at this as a silly comedy, a silly sci-fi comedy, a silly teeny bopper comedy with a guy from Family Ties, and they don't realize how unbelievably excellent Crispin Glover is as George McFly in this role. Not just the older version, the younger version, and then the different older version. We get 3 versions of George in this movie, all played by Crispin Glover, all incredibly played by him. And just that little movement of, the way he moves his hips, and I'll run on over to you tomorrow. But he's like, no, not too early. I sleep in on Saturdays. So great. So awesome. Now, one of the things that I did notice was, and I mentioned that, Marty isn't like George as far as George is, he will turtle and he will do whatever Biff wants him to do. But Marty's a little different. So at one point, Biff goes over after, he's bullying George, and he grabs some candy out of a candy dish. He looks at Marty. Marty just stares him down. And Biff just looks at him, a little goofy, like grin on his face, but doesn't say anything, and then walks away. And Biff does a little more, bullying, joking, like, kind of slaps him around. It does the thing where, oh, you got something on you, hits him in the face. And then he's like, you got the place cleaned up real nice. And Biff opens the drawer out of the fridge, and he says a line that I have used 1,000,000 times, and only those people who love this movie and know this movie well understand that it's actually a reference to Back to the Future.
Hey, I have your car towed all the way to your house, and all you got for me is light beer?
That's the line. I love it. But there's a moment where Biff walks over after, joking, and he looks at Marty.
What are you looking at, butthead?
Of course, that's a classic line. But
say hi to your mom.
He says that, and he leaves. And that's the moment where I'm like, Biff is not, he does not look at Marty the same way he looks at George. Something there, and he probably doesn't look at Lorraine the same way. He probably looks at Lorraine the same way that he looks at Marty in this. Like, he knows that George is a pushover. But I'm guessing he looks at Lorraine a little differently. Say hi to your mom for me was something. The house is nice. But when he walked by Marty, he gave him this look. And he gives him that, what are you looking at, butthead? But he doesn't do anything like to make him flinch or anything. He calls him a butthead. But something in his face just showed me he wasn't, not that he was intimidated, but that he knows that Marty is not intimidated back at him. And Marty, of course, is that way, in future episodes of this show, we'll discuss how good of a influence, or how confident of an influence Marty is and ends up being with George. And where the hell did he get that? He didn't get it from George. Maybe he got it from Lorraine. Maybe he got it from Doc. I don't know, but he definitely has this confidence that is unlike the dad that we just met. And then, of course, Biff leaves. George is like, I know what you're saying, son. And you're right. But Biff just happens to be my supervisor. And I'm afraid I'm just not very good with confrontations. And then Marty's like, the car, Dad. And that right there is the end of the segment. So, what happens next? The car's wrecked. I know he was really looking forward to using the car that night, but or that weekend with Jennifer. Even though he wasn't telling them, he told them they were going up to the lake with the guys. Who are the guys? Are they the pinheads? I'd be interested to know who the guys are. We never hear the guys again. Probably the pinheads, probably the band members. And I wonder, do any of those guys be like, are any of them ever like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Pinhead Joe, Pinhead Paul. Oh, I'm taking my girlfriend. We're going to see a movie, and then my family's getting together with my grandparents, going to see them. And what are you doing? Oh, I'm going to go spend some time with that aging scientist. Oh, you're really? He's going to spend time with you? That's okay. I mean, that's cool. Yeah, I know you're into that, Marty. That's cool. What? No, it's fine. It's fine. I work for him. Or they never explain that. I was watching a John Mulaney thing, and it's like they never explained how they became friends. Now the comics do go into that, and it makes sense where it's like Marty had to break in for some reason to his and Doc saw him, and then boom, gave him a job, kind of doing assistant stuff for him. It would have been something where it's like, ever since you started working for me, ever since you're the only one who answered the ad or something like that. And George or the parents could have been like, I know you're working with Dr. Brown, but you need to make sure you get to work on time or school on time, something. None of that. And not that it's needed, but having that would have just filled in a gap that you only notice when you watch this movie, over and over and over and over and over again. Of course, this time I'm not doing that. I'm watching this movie once and only 3.5 minutes at a time. It really is fun. I really am enjoying doing it this way. And I am excited because I was texting with former and future guest of Geek Mentality, Eric, and we were messaging about something else, and he mentioned that he was listening to the new format of the show, and he was like, he'd like to be on. I said, are you kidding me? I'm demanding that you come on every Marchy McFly. I definitely want to make sure I get Eric working late in his office. I feel like it's a tradition at this point, and I definitely, hopefully next week, I said maybe next week we'll pick a day. I'm going to send him the file so we can watch those minutes. I'm almost positive he didn't watch the cartoon last year, but I think he guessed, wasn't it? He was guessing what it was about, I think. My goodness gracious. March. It's funny how that feels so long ago, and yet it feels like it was just a couple weeks ago. And I still have more than a couple weeks to go. I still have, ready for it? I'm going to 31, 30, 29, 28, 27. So I still have 27 days to go. I think I did that right. I'm pretty sure 27 days to go. Doesn't matter. The point is, we're still in the 80s. Marty has no idea what this evening is going to turn into, and I'm excited to go there over the next few days. But until then, until tomorrow, because I will be back tomorrow, you can find me on all the social platforms at Geek Mentality, except TikTok, which is Geek Mentality Mike. The YouTube channel is Fans Not Experts. The website is fansnotexperts.com. I'll be back tomorrow for day 5. I'll be back tomorrow to talk more Back to the Future with you. But until then, thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And here is my theme song.
This is my podcast, I made it. Geek Mentality's what I named it. And I think you should listen and subscribe, 'cause I'm kinda funny and awesome. I think that I'm worth your time, and I'm kinda handsome. My mom says, please listen and please subscribe. At least listen to this episode.
Fans Not Experts.